Hi, I'm Eric Ostro, host of Live at the Lortel. For Season 3, we are focusing on the intersection of arts and advocacy. So many off-Broadway artists give back to their communities. This season, we are giving them the opportunity to speak about how and why they chose the causes they devote themselves to, and how those causes help make them the people and artists they are today. Good evening, everybody. My name is Eric Ostra. Welcome to Live with the Lortel. We're going to get right to the show today because we have an incredible guest. But first, I want to bring on my dear friend, John Andrew Morrison, who is my co-host for the evening.
Hi,
Hey, John.
Eric. How are you, my love?
How are you in DC? You cold?
It's not too bad. Getting ready.
It's cold here. Okay. Norm Lewis is our guest. Norm Lewis can currently be seen starring in the Netflix film The Five Bloods by Spike Lee and in the Hulu miniseries Mrs. America, and just finished a run in Chicken and Biscuits on Broadway. Mr. Lewis received a Tony Award nomination for The Gershwins' Porgy and Bess and has appeared in more than 10 Broadway shows, including being the first African-American Phantom in The Phantom of the Opera. He has appeared on London's West End as Javert in Les Mis and was seen in NBC's Jesus Christ Superstar live concert. Mr. Lewis has appeared in numerous off-Broadway productions, including Sweeney Todd, receiving the Audelco Award for his performance. His albums, the Norm Lewis Christmas album and This Is the Life, can be found on Amazon. Mr. Lewis is a proud founding member of Black Theatre United, an organization which stands together to help protect Black people, Black talent, and Black lives of all shapes and orientations in theater and communities across the country. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Mr. Norm Lewis.
Woohoo!
So happy to have you. Thank you so much. We're so honored.
Thank you. This is awesome.
So it has been a really sad week. I don't want to start off with something sad, but I know you had quite a relationship with Mr. Sondheim, and I'd love to talk about that a little bit. The impact that he had on your life and the shows that you did of his.
Well, I didn't know. It's funny because I didn't know how much of an impact he had. Until, I saw as a kid West Side Story, the movie, and obviously didn't really pay attention to who wrote it. I just enjoyed what was on the screen, but that stuck with me. That's still one of my favorites. And then the movie Gypsy. I didn't really get a chance to see a lot of theater as a young kid, but I did have those movie musicals to relate to. Finally getting to do Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum with Nipsey Russell. It was one of my first shows.
Wow.
When I first moved to New York City, I was a Protean, believe it or not, a Protean.
Wow.
And then, later on getting to do Company and getting to do Sweeney Todd in Washington, D.C. And then over the years, I got a chance to do it in Texas. And then I got to do it off Broadway at the Barrow Street Theater. And he was always a part of that. And I also did Sondheim on Broadway with Barbara Cook and Vanessa Williams. And then A Bed in a Chair. There was like this 3 week, I can't even say it, 3 week, oh my God, 3 week run of Bed in a Chair with Bernadette Peters and Jeremy Jordan. And it was, he's just been in my life periodically throughout the years. And he had become a friend. And he was someone who admired my work. Obviously, I loved working with him and learned so much. And it is a great loss, but he left such a legacy. I think we're going to have so many tributes out there for the next, 20 some odd years.
Yeah, how involved was he with your production down at the Barrow Street and the Sondheim and all the A Bed in the Chair? How involved was he? Was he at all the rehearsals? Was he pulling you aside, talking to you? Do you have a great story on Sondheim when it comes to that?
Well, what I will say with Sweeney Todd, I was a replacement. So me and Carolee Carmelo replaced the original. So we didn't have as much time with him. He did come and he did give us notes and he did, and all that, which was, we were just like, yes, tell me more. But with Sondheim on Sondheim, he was pretty much the associate director because he and James Lapine are, thick as thieves, and so he was there a lot. He didn't intervene too much, but he did give notes, and it was a masterclass of just working with the guy who originated all of this beautiful material. Also, with a bed and a chair, we had just such a short amount of time, and that was in collaboration with Wynton Marsalis and his band. So there was like orchestrations that were done with both of them, and with obviously Sondheim's approval. And you could watch him in rehearsal, really getting into what they were doing with it. And some things he wouldn't let them do, some things he would let them do. And it was great. It was great. And he's someone who is very, very understanding of the voice, very, very understanding of the acting, because you really don't even have to act with his music because it takes you there.
Yeah.
And so it was a wonderful experience on each journey.
And he really was very interested, I believe, in people interpreting and having this new company that's now on Broadway. He's
Right.
kind of open to like going, yeah, let's play a little. So I'm curious, especially with that Wynton Marsalis, like how was he getting to hear that reinterpretation of his music? It was a jazz.
Yeah, it was a jazz. I mean, they didn't go way overboard with the jazz on it, but they did have like just inflections of certain blue notes and certain ways of interpreting. We had a young lady named Cyril Ami. I'm hoping I'm saying her name correctly, but she is a jazz performer. That's what she's known for. But they hired her specifically just to come in to be part of this show, to put her spin on it. And he would, kind of take her, like they would rehearse a lot because she was very proficient in her jazz notations and stuff. So and with us, with Bernadette, myself, and we're the old hacks. We kind of stuck to the script and maybe change the note here and there, but with his permission. But you could see that he was really getting into it, especially at the Sitzprobe. He was really getting into it. He was like, yeah, okay, I got you.
So
I got you. Yeah.
Amazing.
I'd love to talk because this year we are talking about where your activism meets your artistry, and you are a founding member of Black Theater United, and I would love for you to talk a little bit about how it started and where it's going, and if you feel a change of any kind or a shift of any kind.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for this. And it's how it got started basically is because we saw such an influx of what's the right word I'm looking for? Like so many murders. I mean, I can't say anything else. There were murders that were happening over and over and over again. And what was different about this was the fact that we were in this pandemic and we were at home. So it made people stop and watch and see it. And what I guess the straw that broke the camel's back was George Floyd. And so from that, LaChance and Audra talked to each other and just had like this, breakdown of just, what do we do? What do we do? And I know that a lot of people are going to be looking to us to have answers for our industry, because now the floodgates have been opened. People felt a way and felt compelled to say something about how they've been treated. So Audra and LaChance called all of us, and a bunch of us just got together on a Zoom and talked about our feelings. And all of a sudden we decided, why don't we put a group together? And we started that process, and we are 501c3, and we decided we're going to have a difference and make a difference in this industry. Now, there are other factions of other groups out there, Black Theater Coalition, Broadway Advocacy Group. Some of them have already been in process before we were, but we knew that we had certain accesses to people that maybe they didn't. And what we could do is collaborate. And that's why we decided to use the word united and have those conversations, and then go out and let us all work together. So we're all saying the same thing, coming at it from different avenues, but our group is pretty strong with outreach and connections and things like that. And so we have formulated and put together a lot of amazing projects in order to make sure that we have equity and inclusion of our people in this industry.
Are you feeling a change now as opposed to like when you first started in this business? Do you in the bones, are you feeling a shift or a change that's real? And if so, can you talk to it?
Yeah, I mean, what I would say, I'm going to try to make this brief, but I want to make this point. I feel like, okay, so in the 70s, let's just go to the 70s. And there's, some other shows before that, but in the 70s was a good time for Black people because there were so many Black shows, The Wiz and Your Arm Short the Box with God and Bubbling Brown Sugar, because a lot of them were on Broadway and then some were touring and then some were in Europe. So Black employment was good back then. But they were Black shows. Then you had shows that would employ maybe one or two African Americans or one or two Asian people or whatever the case would be.
Right.
There was that, for lack of a better term, a quota that was being met. I would say the 80s were different. They were shifting. You had Dreamgirls, you had things like that, still considered a Black show. Then the Les Mises and the Miss Saigon and all of that stuff came in. So I would say that it shifted 80s, 90s into the 2000s. You would go back to maybe having one or two people of color in these different types of shows. I feel like the conversation started a little bit once Hamilton actually got into picture, because people saw that you don't necessarily have to have someone who fits the mold of what it is to tell the story. I've been lucky because I've gotten a chance to play a lot of roles that were considered white roles. So, but I'm one of very few people who have had that opportunity. Brian Stokes Mitchell, there's only a few names, Audrey McDonald and Carousel. So we wanted that conversation to move forward and to have more people not only on stage but behind the stage, in casting, in management, in producing, and have more of a voice that way.
Yeah.
And encourage people to say, I can not only be on stage as someone of color, but I can also be someone who can produce a show or be in management and as well.
Yeah, that's such an interesting thing. I mean, like so many people don't realize that there are other careers in theater other than being on stage,
Right.
And yeah, I'm working with a Black stage manager right now, and it's fascinating. There are not many.
Well, Karen Ford, I'm going to mention her name. I hope she doesn't mind this, but she is in our group, Black Theater United. But for many, many years, she has been the only person of color to be in sound.
Yeah.
And she's a female. Now with Chicken and Biscuits, we did have a female sound designer. So that there's a difference there. But, for many years, Karen was the only person of color, male or female. Anyway, sorry.
So Norm, I'd love to go back a little bit on your career when you first came to New York and you first started auditioning or whatever. And I've had talks with John and other guests that we've had on the show about going into an audition and somebody from behind the table asking you to be more ... or be less ... I would love to get your take on if that is shifting, or if you have a story from when you were young and something like that happened. And, when you, as Norm Lewis, as the artist, found his voice as to say, no, I'm not doing that.
Right. In musical theater, I didn't experience it personally. I know other people who have. Television and film and commercials, yes, I did experience that. And they would use the term urban, be more urban. So I'm of an era where I don't know if people felt they had a voice to say no, if that makes sense. I did once I got a little more established in the industry, I did start saying no, and saying, "What do you mean? Like, what exactly are you trying to say? If you're trying to say something, say it." But I was, this newbie coming into this world and this industry. I was a little bit more nervous and apprehensive to say anything, and just kind of did it. Am I proud of that? I don't know. I can't say I am, but I was just trying to go for a job.
Of
But
course.
yeah, it has shifted. I don't think people can say that anymore because that's such a code word.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and there's
No,
so and there's so many cancel culture people out there that was like, you're not going to say that now.
Talking about saying no, do you talk about saying no? Do you remember the first time that you did have the courage to go no, and what that felt like, or what happened with that?
From a racial standpoint, or from just in not feeling comfortable standpoint?
Um, Dealer's choice, not being comfortable. Let's go, not
Well,
being comfortable. Yeah.
There have been a couple of shows that there were, like, I would say something that was, they wanted us to do something that could be dangerous, and I just said, absolutely not. I mean, because I have a long life to live and I have a long life to be in this industry, so I don't want to take that chance on just this one stunt or whatever it was, in order for me to make this show look better, or whatever you're trying to, whatever your concept is. So I do remember standing up for myself in that regard. But again, I had some shows under my belt.
Under your belt,
If this was something that had been in the beginning, I would have probably tried it and let them see what it was and saw how dangerous it was. But there were moments that, and plus being older, I'm like, yeah, forget it. I'm too tired. 8 times a week, forget that.
Oh, that's the
Yeah.
thing. The 8
Yeah.
times a week of it too.
Right.
Like, it's not just going to be once.
No.
So I would love to touch on something that meant a lot to me, was the Actors Fund Dreamgirls, where you got to play Curtis. Audra McDonald got to play Dina Jones, and John knows how obsessed I am with that play.
Yes.
And how I don't know how I got into that day, but I got in. And what that show meant to me as a young gay kid living in New York. And I'm wondering what that experience was like for you, and what that was like. I remember being in the theater and that place shaking.
Yeah. It was,
and what
awesome.
That experience was like.
It was awesome, because for me, it was 1982 when Dreamgirls came out. I was in college, and I just remember the way I got introduced to that show. A friend of mine, I was in my dorm room. A friend of mine knocked on my door. I was sleeping, and said, "Wake up! You need to see this woman. You get to see this woman," because I can't find it anywhere on YouTube. But Jennifer Holliday sang "And I'm Telling You" on Saturday Night Live. And yes, and they woke me up for me to see this. I think she's one of the only people ever who was not a recording artist at the time to actually be a performer on Saturday Night Live.
I didn't know she did that.
And anyway, so they woke me up, and I finally got the end of it, and I was like, what the hell was that? That was amazing. So did more research, found out that there was this show on Broadway, yada yada. Bought the CD or the album. CDs weren't invented yet, and just became obsessed like everybody else, because it was a representation of Broadway that I had never seen before, and the way that it was structured, especially that fight scene. Seeing the Tonys that year, that fight scene, it's an opera. It is an opera, and it is so beautifully crafted. So being obsessed with it, kind of like you, over the years, and then finally getting a chance to be in the role of the show on such a high level with all these amazing people, it was overwhelming. And if I don't think you saw it because you were probably paying attention to what was going on stage, but my legs were shaking during that moment when she was singing to me. And I'm telling you, I was all I had to do was just stand there, but my legs were going like this because I was so nervous, knowing that that is the pinnacle song. That's what everybody wants to hear. So
I have a bootleg copy. I'll send it to you. So I'm gonna look for your legs next time.
Oh,
I'm gonna look.
My friend Michael Benjamin Washington was obsessed as I was, and you know he had given me a copy to borrow, and I watch it from time to time. And
absolutely. And Lily, it's that powerhouse coming.
Oh
man,
yeah.
Oof.
There is nothing like
And then to
Lilia's
kiss
wife.
on Audra McDonald. I mean, that's not a bad thing to do either.
Yeah.
I got to make out with
There's if you go to YouTube, you can actually see Seth Rudetsky did like it's almost an hour of behind the scenes of the making of Dreamgirls, the concert, and we get to see everybody sitting around the table and with Audra and Lilius and you and Billy Porter and everybody, and it's an incredible thing to watch. And how many years ago it was, and you haven't aged a bit. You still look exactly the same.
That's a nice group of people to be a part of, Norm Lewis, too.
Yeah,
that is like they're your friends and your colleagues in this business, and that that must be an amazing thing to be able to call Audra and LaChanze, friends as well as
and Darius DeHaas and the late James Stovall. Yeah, it was Tamara Tooney was also part of that. It was great. Yeah,
she played Michelle. That was early in your career, right?
Yes.
So Seth found you and cast you in it. How terrified were you? Obviously, your legs were shaking, but
shaking. Seth has been my champion for a long time. I mean, he gave me my very first job when I moved here in 1989. I did Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat at Candlewood Playhouse, and he was the musical director. And there's a major story behind that too, but he gave me my first job. And actually, because I was not, one of the equity members, I was a non-equity ensemble member, but he allowed me to do 2 solos in the show. They were small, but that's normally they normally give those to people who have equity contracts.
Now, talking about that, you were you in journalism before? You started off in a different career, right? Like what brought you? How did you catch the bug, and then how did you bet on yourself to go, I'm going to make this leap and do it?
Well, I didn't know I could sing until I was 16. I sang in church, because it was just a rite of passage. My grandfather was a preacher. My dad was the chairman of the deacon board. I lived in church. So at age 9, I said, I give my life to Jesus. And so what happened was, from there, my friends who also went to that church joined the choir. Now, we were not like a choir that like you had to hear. We were just singing, we were just singing a joyful noise, you know what I mean? And then all of a sudden, at age 16, I was in high school and I had to have an elective, and they put me in home economics. And I said, no, I don't want to do this. But I said, you know what? I sing in choir at church. I'll go out for the choir here. And I went to the musical director and I said, hey, I would like to join the choir. And he said, well, let's hear something. And I think I sang Yankee Doodle Dandy or something. And then he started taking me up and down scales. He put me in the bass baritone section. And I found, like, it was like this aha moment. I heard this music for the first time surrounding me. Instead of listening to it on the radio or television, it was surrounding me, and it was classical. It was Broadway. I'm like, wow. And there was an awakening. And so I just kind of delved a little bit more into it. I loved it. I didn't think I had a voice per se. No one ever said you have a nice voice, but to make me do a solo. But I loved singing. And then I finally joined the choir, the show choir, the next year, my senior year. And that's when I got my first solo. And that's when people started saying, oh, you have a nice voice. So it went on from there. Again, never thinking about a career. I went on to college and majored in business. And then after college, I started working for a newspaper. in the production department, the marketing department, and then ended up in advertising. But I still sang on the side, and I would sing at contests. They had Star Search back then.
Right.
So they would have these little contests at bars, and I would go there and enter and win $100 or lose or whatever.
Wow.
And then one of the ones that I won, there was a judge in the audience who was a producer for a cruise ship. And after I won, he said, if you want it, I need someone like you on this cruise. So I went to my supervisor at work. She said, you know what? You don't want to be 85 years old saying coulda, woulda, shoulda. You should go for it. And I did. And that's how I launched my career.
So you launched your
Wow.
career on cruise ships, and then what was the next leap? Did you go right to New York?
Yes. So what happened was I was only there for 4 months. I got bored out of my mind because I didn't have a lot to do. And I was going to go back to school and study theater. And one of the guys in the show actually convinced me. He said, don't do that. He said, move to New York, audition, learn up in New York. You can take classes there, voice, dance, acting. And I said, do you think that I have what it takes? Because I was literally going to go back to school, try to get a degree to go. Blah, blah. And he's like, just go. He said, don't wait, just go. And from that, I came to New York, and that's when I, started booking shows.
That's just amazing to me that Norm Lewis didn't know he could sing. That's amazing. That's an amazing story.
I think, I learned on the job. New York has been, I call it the NYU, but not necessarily NYU. But I learned New York itself, the city, was my university.
And Seth gave you your first job in New York.
Yeah,
amazing.
Yeah,
and then so it just started snowballing after
Right.
Seth gave you a job. And what was your next big break after that?
So the next gig, I stayed non-union for a year because I thought being union was a whole Shangri-La. So I was like, there's going to be a lot more competition. So my next gig was, the Forum with Nipsey Russell. And then I got a job back at the same theater where Seth had hired me, Candlewood Playhouse in Danbury, Connecticut. And I did Joseph around Christmas time. And that next summer, I ended up doing My Fair Lady. And then I worked at Shawnee Playhouse, and I played the leading player. So I said, I got enough confidence now. I'll try to go for an equity show. And I did a equity theater for young audience, which was with a company called Arts Power. And I was the lead in that. And it was actually an adult themed sort of show. It was 77 years ago. And I was a runaway slave who wanted to fight for the Union Army. And we were playing this to kindergartners and also high schoolers. So we would tour the tri-state area, and it was a good run. It was a good show. And then from there, I started doing more regional things, and finally got to do Tommy. Was my first Broadway show.
Amazing. You paid your dues.
Yeah.
Did you ever have to have another job, outside of? Yeah, you did.
Oh yeah. And in fact, I worked when I first moved here. I knew about it was called Norel's temporary service. And I just remember I got on their roster, and whenever they needed me to be either a receptionist or someone who did word processing, because I could do that, I would go for that job. And then I would still intertwine my auditions in between that. I worked as a cater waiter. I did a lot of catering, all the way from where you just walk around and serve people to French serving. You ever done French serving?
Yeah, of course. I was in catering a long time.
Was the worst. It was the worst because it was those
tough.
Yeah, those shishi fufu people, and they didn't want to you would have to serve them each individual, like the protein, the starch, and the vegetable.
And you got to get the fork, the two forks together exactly to work exactly right, and you have to be served from. You have to serve from the right and clear from the left.
Yes. It was, and there was one where I worked where they were already plated, but we was such an army. We would walk out together with two things, and like you said, you serve on the left and you pick up on the right. So we would walk out, stand behind the group of people that we were supposed to stand behind, and the captain would go like that. And we would all go at one time, put it down. And then we would go to the next person, put it down. Like it anyway.
Not fun. So you I would love to talk about the Spike Lee film that you were working on. Yeah. And you tell us a little bit about the experience of working with Spike Lee, working on the movie. You worked a little bit with Chadwick Boseman as well, right?
Yeah. That was awesome. How that came about, I met Spike when especially doing Porgy and Bess. He came to see it about 5 times with his family and everything. So got to meet him there, got to know him a little bit. Then he called me and said, "Oh no, I had an audition for She's Gotta Have It, the TV series," and I ended up doing that. Then a couple of months go by, and he called me and said, "I want you to read a script, and then we'll talk about it tomorrow." And he hung up on me, and I said, "Okay," because he sent it to me. I read the script, called him the next day and said, "It's like, okay, I want you to come out to Brooklyn. Let's have dinner. Let's talk about it." Now, he still didn't offer it to me, but he said, "Let's talk about it." Went out there, had dinner. We talked for a little bit. We had dinner. We laughed and had fun. And then he said, "I want you to play the role of Eddie." So I said, "Okay." And inside, I'm jumping up and down like a schoolboy, right? Ah! But I'm trying to be cool. I'm like, thanks, Spike. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. And then I had to make a decision, which was not even a decision, but within the next couple of weeks, because we had to fly out to Thailand. And so I was just excited. I got to work with these giants, Delroy Lindo, Isaiah Whitlock, and Clark Peters, and it was just amazing just to be in the presence of. And then I got to meet who is now a major giant in this industry, is Jonathan Majors. He's young lad who's just doing just so well. And it was just so amazing to be there and watch Spike's process. He knows what he wants, when he wants it, how he wants it. But being an actor himself, he allowed us to, grow within those parameters. And sometimes he would change a line in the middle of a scene. He'd say, "No, okay, don't say that, say this." And then he would say, "What would Eddie say in this moment?" So some of it, a lot of it, is improv that you saw in the movie. Yeah.
Let's go from there to, unfortunately, last night, Chicken and Biscuits yesterday afternoon played its last performance. Had to close early, I know, but it was your first play on Broadway that wasn't a musical. Is that right?
Yeah. I was very
That's
excited
amazing to me. You've been on Broadway for so long, and this was your first play.
Yeah, I've been close to getting some other plays, but for some reason, people want to hear me sing more than they want to hear me speak. So
I wonder why.
It's funny because most of my non-musical stuff is television or film, and so this was great to have to experience this 8 times a week. There's one less thing you have to worry about is your voice. I mean, you still have to project, you still have to make sure, but if it's not quite there, it's okay. But when you're doing a musical, you got to be a little bit more precious with the voce. But yeah, it was great to be with these wonderful actors and our great producing team and the people backstage and all the creators and designers, and we just had such a great family of people. It was 30 Broadway debuts on stage and off stage. Awesome. And just seeing that enthusiasm and that the awe factor in everyone's eyes made this old jaded, I've been on Broadway guy, just a renewed sort of sense of what this industry is all about.
Yeah, we had Douglas on, and
yes,
it was right before the announcement that Chicken and Biscuits was going to Broadway. So he couldn't say it, but it was so exciting I had such a good time. For me, it was to go see the show. It was the first show I saw after that we were allowed to go after during the pandemic. And it was, for me, it was like a religious experience going to that show. There was so much laughter. There was so much, I dare to say, higher power in that theater. So much laughter and tears, and just, I don't know if it was being back in a theater and sitting next to a stranger. It just was so filled. You could just tell the cast loved each other so much, and that there was such love in the room. It was a great, wonderful experience to see.
So just to like piggyback, but in a completely different direction from that, I'm interested. You know, you've had many openings and many closings, right? How do you hold the disappointment, the inevitable disappointment that happens with this job, right? Things close, contracts end. We have to move on to the next thing. And like being someone who's been in the game for so long, how do you have any rituals? How do you hold that? How do you mourn that and move on?
Well, you know that there's the economics of it. You put a lot of work into it. You put your heart and soul into these things, and to make them the best that they can be. But you do know that there is that potential of the economics playing a major part in it. And what I've learned, even since Sideshow, when I did Sideshow back in 1997, I found out, I was like, oh, it's about marketing. It's about marketing. And you have to market to people to let them know that it's there. When we did Sideshow, we shut down the theater as soon as the last person left, instead of keeping the lights going. So we had a lot of people come to us saying, are you guys open? You know, that kind of thing. So we also opened during that season was Lion King, Ragtime, and Scarlet Pimpernel. So we were going up against powerhouses. So you have to learn how to manipulate people to come and see your show. And I was like, and me having an advertising background, I was like, I have all these ideas that what we could do. And, you know, obviously, since I was not in the advertising department at for the management, they didn't listen to what I was saying. When it came to this was a different and a tricky thing, because we, like you said, this was coming out of the pandemic, or one of the first shows to come from that. We knew that we were gambling, but by the same token, there were things that I feel that I could have done had I been in charge of the marketing, making a deal with Popeyes, making a deal with Kentucky Fried Chicken. But seriously, you know what I mean? Having some sort of deal with them in order to get maybe 20% off their next purchase, or, you know, have them run a commercial regionally that says, hey, you know, love that chicken from Popeyes, go see Chicken and Biscuits on Broadway. You know what I mean? Something that really, really wouldn't have taken that much. Also, I would have said, let's go to the Black churches. People have they had a preconceived notion of what the show was about. Have you ever heard of the Chitlin Circuit?
Oh, yeah.
So a lot of times people, when you have stereotypes and archetypes in a show, especially African American show, you think of it as one thing. But I feel like this show was not that, but you still want that audience that would go to that. Am I making sense?
Yeah, you are. I got you.
But once you get there, it's not a typical Chitlin Circuit show, because it has more relatability, you know, because I'm sure there were things that you saw. We've had people who were of the Jewish faith, of the Catholic faith, of, you know, different faiths saying, oh my God, that sort of experience has happened to us in our church. But it also, you were laughing and you were getting, like you said, uplifted, but then all of a sudden you would turn around and you would start crying. I thought it should have been attributed to more of a Neil Simon play, as opposed to like a Tyler Perry. Because it's family, but it's told through the lens of an African American family, but it's a very relatable story. And anyway, so
Norm, just so our audience understands, so a Chitlin Circuit is a play like a Tyler Perry kind of.
yes.
I see. So
And there's a lot of archetypes and stereotypes that are in there that is for a particular audience, and people can understand and relate to it and have fun. But this I felt was different just because it had other elements to it that a lot of Chitlin Circuit shows don't have.
Yeah.
It had a lot of heart and a lot of conflict and a lot of objectives to get over on either side, and
redemption,
so much love. The redemption part, and Natasha was just beautiful in that show as well.
Yeah.
I got a question from the audience. Preston Berger wants to know, who are some of your most notable mentors, and what are some of the most impactful lessons you have learned from them?
Oh, wow. Jesus. Wow. Well, people who didn't know they were my mentors, obviously the Sidney Poitiers and the Sammy Davis Juniors. And I mean, even so much so as Dean Martin and Frank Sinatra. My favorite singer of all, I didn't imitate him, but I would emulate him, is Johnny Mathis. So, and I actually got to do a duet with him in California. So, but yeah, people that I've had many mentors. A man named Chapman Roberts, who is such a great historian. He's been on Broadway as a performer. He's been someone who's arranged music on Broadway. I would say Richard J. Alexander, who is my director and my friend, but he has taught me so much about this industry. The different directors I've worked with. I mean, I would, gosh, there's so many to name, but that's a great question. Thank you for that.
Let's talk about your show coming up at 54 Below. Is there any one song that you perform at this show, or any shows that you do? And I'm also interested in how you prepare for a one-man show as opposed to how you prepare for playing a character. But for now, is there any one song you perform and your shows that best expresses who you are as a person or an artist?
Ooh, that's a great question. Oh, wow. Who I am as an artist. It's so funny because I do
take a moment. It's okay.
Yeah. I have I mean, if I don't do music of the night, people will get mad and start throwing
they'll throw the appetizers at you.
Yeah, they'll throw all kinds of stuff at me. So I have to throw that into the show a lot of times. But what's interesting, a song that I didn't think that I would ever sing as a solo. I love singing it along with the original artist, but I just thought, this is interesting that someone would bring this to me. But it's become one of my anthems. It's What's Going On, Marvin Gaye. And it really hits home because it's like evergreen, because you can say that about any particular situation in our world, in the United States, things like that. And it's what's going on. What the hell is happening? Yeah. And recently I've been I've incorporated what the world needs now is love, sweet love.
Yeah.
And because that's exactly what we need. We are talking at each other instead of with each other or to each other. So I try to throw that in there. But mainly I try to just tell stories of what my year has been when I do a Christmas show. What my year has been with this amazing, situations with the pandemic and a lot of things that have happened to me in the pandemic. I actually got lucky enough to work in this pandemic. So I try to bring those kinds of stories and then have a song that relates to that to fit into the scale of it.
Can I tell you my favorite song that you're singing?
What is that?
Is Home.
Oh,
from
okay.
The Wiz.
You know what?
I could watch that over and over on YouTube. Your rendition of it, and you always sing from the heart, but your phrasing of the words is something. It's a rendition that I had never heard before, and I just think it's so magnificent and beautiful. So,
well, thank you for that. I appreciate that.
I love your rendition of Home.
Well, and that is, I will say, I guess maybe that does touch a different chord, because that was the first album that I listened to when someone told me that I needed to get into musical theater. So I ran to the library when I was in high school and got The Wiz, and I still think I have it. So I think I owe it. But I played it over and over and over again, and I had never seen the show, but I would always, just listening to it, I would imagine what was going on. Obviously, I know the story from The Wizard of Oz, but this was and I think that Home was my first audition song when I auditioned for a play in Orlando.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was the first Broadway show I saw as a young child, and something I'll never forget ever as long as I live. Does something resonate with you differently now after what we've lived through for the past 2 years, when you get up on stage and sing and talk to an audience? Is the feeling different from an audience? Is there something different inside you? Has something changed?
Something has changed within me. No, something is not the same.
You could sing that song too.
What I think, because we were not in contact with each other for so long, there was this longing to have that visceral reaction, the live reaction. I did this a lot for like 15 months. I sang into the computer in my living room, and it was
with your books.
With my books, yes. all these books that I've read. But it was interesting because it just didn't have that same. Sometimes I didn't want to sing. I didn't have any joy. I didn't have any joy singing into this computer, even though people were asking for that from different artists. But it just sometimes just didn't feel right. And I actually had to say no a couple of times, because it would have been inauthentic. There were times that I definitely did it because it was a charitable event or something like that. But if it was something just to for one person, I don't know. I needed to find the joy in order to do it. And now, being able to be back in front of an audience, I got a chance early on. I think it was in April or May, and we did restart stages at Lincoln Center, and so they allowed me to perform in front of an audience outdoors. So that helped. That was the first time, and then there's been other outdoor concerts like this past summer that I've been able to do, and it's been great. And then being able to do this Chicken and Biscuits and hearing the audience, feeling the audience, it just felt so good. Yeah.
And you were up at the Berkshires too.
Yes. Got to do the Berkshires in a tent in front of the theater.
Don't get scared. I'm not stalking you. I've done a lot of research, and I'm a big fan.
I love it.
John, I'm sorry.
Oh, no. Because I mean, I want to talk about your album and some of the things that we can get to. You just happen to have one. What? Look at that.
What are you talking about? You mean that's all thing?
What is that?
Vinyl.
What is that, Mr.
Holiday
Lewis?
album?
This is my holiday album, my Christmas album.
Look at you unwrapping the gift.
Yes, naughty and nice, baby. Naughty and nice.
Well, and there you go. There is your website, normlewis.com. But one of my absolute favorite things that you did, and I just loved it, was the public works. Tempest. And I was so taken by that whole thing. And you did the very first one.
Right.
And the thing that I loved about it was, like, everybody at some point in time should get a standing ovation. And I just loved, like, the cab drivers and the domestic workers and, like, the old people and the young people. Everybody deserves a standing ovation at some point in time. It was one of my favorite things. What was that experience of being able to helm something with that many people from, all these different walks of life? That must have been such an interesting and unique, singular experience.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you just said it right there. It was so brilliantly put together. And we were the launch of that. And to work with, I love saying our director's name. Her name is Lear Dobessonnet. And I can't call her just Lear. It has to be Lear Dobessonnet. And she was just wonderful, the way that she handled everything and put everything together. And I have to give Oscar Eustace kudos as well at the public for allowing this to happen. And to get and I don't know if the audience knows about this. A lot of people might not know, but they got different factions of different groups from all of the boroughs and put them on stage, and dancers and people who were not performers at all, but they gave them a line or they gave them something to do on stage at the Delacorte Theater in Central Park. And it was a beautiful, beautiful moment. And now I think they've done like 5 of them now, 5 or 6 of them.
Oh yeah, something like that. But like it just wonderful. I mean, I was watching it and just bawling the whole way through. It was such a joy machine in a way, what it was able to do. And so I'm so glad I got to see you do that, and got to see you be the Phantom, and to see you do Sweeney. So this is the point of the interview where we just gush at you rather than ask you questions.
Right, so we're just gonna gush now for the next 10 minutes. But I do want to talk about you have a movie coming out on Lifetime called Christmas in Tune with Miss Reba McEntire.
Yes, and John Schneider,
and John Schneider from the Dukes of Hazzard.
Yeah,
I don't know why I go into a southern drawl when I say it.
The Dukes of Hazzard,
I can't help it.
And
Reba, tell me about that experience, and when does that come out?
Oh, it launched the day after Thanksgiving, so it's out now, and you can see it on Lifetime. And we just had the best time. We shot it back in May. I was there for about a month or so, and it's such a great group of people. Everybody was so enthused to work. You know what I mean? Like, it was just a chance to work and what we were going through. And plus it was Christmas, you know what I mean? So we were celebrating Christmas early, and we had to pretend that we were cold when it was so hot. We shot it in Nashville, Tennessee, and we had our coats on and things like that. But it was great. Everybody pulled together. Everybody loved hanging out with each other. And Lifetime is, people can say that it's, what's going to happen. It's those rom-coms. You know what's going to happen, but you love it anyway. You're like, I got to see the end. I got to watch this.
There's something satisfying about the formula in a way. My niece loves them. Like, she watches every single one of them. So
right.
And we just had a great time.
Oh no, we just had such a great time. And I always, people ask me what part did I play. I say, well, I was a Yenta, and so I was trying to put John. I was trying to put John's character with Reba, because they were married, but then they separated. And I was the person that was like, hey, come on, you like her, you like him, blah blah blah. And I got to play the piano on set, and I got to, I didn't get a chance to sing, but I got a chance to be a part of that band that they would put together.
So you got a little bit of Fiddler on the Roof in Reba McEntire. You got to play Yenta. Well, good for you.
Yes.
Amazing.
What do you, in terms of being the first African-American man to play Phantom, what was that like the first time you went on and put that mask on?
Well, I want to qualify it and add a couple of other words to that. I'm the first African-American to play it on Broadway. And I stand on the shoulders of Robert Guillaume. And for me, what I had known that he was a Phantom, but he was Robert Guillaume. So I thought I would have to be a star in order to be even considered. But I kept, coveting that role for 20 years. I saw it back in 1994 in Toronto. And you
saw him do it?
I didn't see him do it. No, I saw I saw Colm Wilkinson do it up in Toronto.
Okay.
And then, but I said, I want to play that role. I want to play that role. Again, thinking that I have to be a star in order to do that. But 20 years later, almost to the day, I got to play the role. It was 2014. And so, wishes and dreams come true. Now, I didn't go into it saying I wanted to be the first. I went into it saying I wanted to at least do the role, but also set a precedent and have people just have opportunities. Any of my colleagues could have sung this role and could have gotten this role. I happen to be the lucky one. Now, I did get the title of the first African American on Broadway to do it, but it was bigger than that because I would meet people after the show who were from China, Brazil, India, and they said, now I feel like I can do this role or I can be in the show. And so if I can be that for them, I'll accept that.
I mean, a sense of pride. My aunt from Jamaica, like, still, she met Black Phantom, and like, she saw you, and she talks about it. Like, it was a moment of pride to be able to go in something like that, which has this big worldwide recognition. To be able to see this Black man on Broadway do it was a source of pride for a lot of people. So
I'll bet. Well, so let's take it back. We have a couple more minutes, and I would love to talk a little bit more about Black Theater United, and if you can answer, what can people do to, besides write a check, as Tova Felcha says, if you can't write a check, you do the work.
You do the work. Yeah, that's great, Tova. And I know Tova. She's definitely someone who's very direct. I would say, go to the website, look at our mission statement, look at the things that we're doing, and get involved. Like, have the conversation. Don't be afraid to have the conversation. Like, who is in your management office? Who is in your casting office? And just be that person who can be an ally. If you're not African American yourself, be an ally. Also go to other organizations like Broadway Advocacy Group, Black Theater Coalition, and do as much as you can for them as well. Because like I said, we're all saying the same thing. And whoever you feel comfortable with, be a part of that. Donate. Please donate.
Of course.
We'll take money because we are a 501c3 and we definitely live on donations. But just be someone who is willing to have the conversation.
So what you're saying is basically, if we're not Black and we want to do something, then having conversations with family and friends and people who aren't really looking at this as a problem in the world is to light fires under people.
Absolutely.
Have the conversation.
Don't be afraid to have the conversation. Just that's
right.
Definitely.
Because it can be an uncomfortable thing, obviously. So we want to move past that, step over the line, and bring up the conversation and talk about it. About it. I mean, obviously, this Thanksgiving was a perfect time for friends and family to sit down and talk about what's going on in the world.
Right. Absolutely. Right now, it's politicized, but people keep talking about critical race theory and all that kind of stuff. But a lot of times you got to think about, there's a lot of our history. There's a lot of American history that has been erased. I remember growing up, I knew about, I would say, Amerigo Vespucci, and then Christopher Columbus, then the Pilgrims, then George Washington, and then slavery. And it's like, oh, it was a bad time. And then it was World War I. So I didn't know much about, you know what I mean? So there's a lot of history that is still out there that needs to be uncovered and discovered. And, and it could actually help people have a better understanding of one another. And so anyway, and I hope that that's what we're going to do, not just for theater itself. We're using the title Black Theater United, but we are actually coming at legislative things and having those things changed as well, having those conversations. We can't get too political. I can't tell you who to vote for, but I can encourage you to vote. So
you can. You can say whatever you like on here.
No, I'm just saying.
I hear what you're saying.
Remember,
we think we can go to Black Union. You can go to our website. We put it up there, and there's lots of conversations to be had. And Norm Lewis, the hour has gone by so quickly.
No.
Yeah, I know.
Wait.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, please.
Show us.
Go to my website.
Come a little closer to the camera. Go ahead.
Go to my website. And wait, let me turn it this way. There we go.
That is Pink Titan.
King Triton mask.
And then I have a Javert mask.
Yes. Christmas
And
presents.
Christmas presents. And just go to my website, and this is the Phantom. It's a mask.
Yes.
And then I also have a beanie that has my name on it.
Yes.
I want one of those.
Beanie. And like I said, you can get them now at my website.
Very good.
But these masks, I have to say, if you know Kenneth Fallon, the artist, I commissioned him to draw these, and he did such a fantastic job. So, thank you, Kenneth. I love you.
How much is the hat?
The hat is 20. Everything's 20. Everything is 20. And
I'm
a lot
going
of
on
it
right now. I'm getting it all.
A lot of the money is going to be donated to a special cause. I have to be careful how I say that, but to a special cause that I am a part of.
You have such a sparkle and a capacity for joy, and I think this is also something that makes people why you're so beloved. There is a capacity for joy within you, and it has been joyous talking with you for this hour.
Likewise.
I came in. I was not having a good day, but you brought sparkle into my day, Mr. Lewis, and I'm so glad to know you, and I can't wait to see what you do next. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts for being alive at the Lortel. Don't forget to go to Black Theater United and go to normlewis.com to get Norm Lewis swag that you can wear proudly.
And albums.
And don't forget his show at 54 Below and his albums. That's our show. Next Monday, December 6th, my friend Tasha Yvette Williams will join me in speaking with Christine Toy Johnson. Christine is an award-winning writer, actor, director, filmmaker, and advocate for inclusion. We will be talking about her 35-year-long acting career and her philanthropic, including the Dramatists Guild podcast, The Dramatists Guild Presents Talkback, and her work in shifting perceptions about AAPI artists and stopping anti-Asian hate crimes. Then on Monday, December 13th, Joy DiMichele and I will finally get to interview actor, writer, activist Ronaldo Pinella. In addition to his numerous off-Broadway credits, he currently serves on the Council of the Episcopal Actors Guild, a non-sectarian charitable organization that provides food and financial assistance to actors in need. In addition, he is involved with the National Association of Latino Arts and Culture and the Weeksville Heritage Center. More information about these and future guests and how to attend our recordings online can be found on our website at liveatTheLortel.com. Thank you for joining us. Remember, the new Omicron variant is real. So get vaccinated, get your booster, wear a mask and be safe. You can get a Norm Lewis mask in 3 different variations. Put them up, Norm. normlewis.com. We hope to see you in a theater soon. Good night, everybody. Thank you so much, and especially thank you to the magnificent, beautiful, handsome Norm Lewis. Thank you so much. Good night, everybody.